Hey Trekkies, and welcome to Trek Freaks, part of Geek Freaks Podcast Network. On this podcast, we review and analyze episodes of Star Trek, starting all the way back in the original series, original episode. My name is John, and I'm one of your hosts, joined by my good friend and co-host, Kevin.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing?
Doing all right. Not entirely looking forward to reliving this episode because I didn't like it that much, but today we're talking about Season 2, Episode 12, The Deadly Years.
The Deadly Years. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot to complain about a lot of episodes. I realize now, even though, I say I like Star Trek and then people just hear me complain about it all day. But I kind of liked this episode. I thought it was, better than most, but, not my favorite, but still pretty good standalone episode.
I think that we like Star Trek enough that we find the things that we don't like, and that's what stands out. Because everything else that we don't talk about, stuff that's like, oh yeah, we like it, so we're not going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the things that piss us off.
Yeah. And, my word of advice to anyone listening, if there's anything you like, don't make a hobby of analyzing it, because you will find the little details that you missed, and you're like, oh, yeah, they shouldn't have done that, or they shouldn't have done this. Yeah, it doesn't ruin it, but it, highlights the negatives that you wouldn't normally recognize. But all right, before we dive into the Warp Speed recap, I got a question for you.
Ooh, what's up?
This episode deals with aging a little bit, so a lot. So I want to ask you, if you could do anything once you retire, what would it be? Anything meaning you have unlimited funds and access to whatever you want.
That's a good question. I kind of just want to say that I'd be doing the things that I do outside of work right now anyway, and I'd like to continue doing all that, but have more time to do it. Mainly being, at least two weekly podcasts like I do now with Trek Freaks and Pushing Buttons, and then every so often on the mainline Geek Freaks show. I'd like to continue podcasting because I love that, but I'm also now starting to get into a side hustle of buying and reselling video games. I love video games, hence the Pushing Buttons podcast. But I love I love finding deals, like reminiscing over games that I played a long time ago. I'm like, oh man, this one's going to be a hard one to sell, but cleaning up the cases, making sure the discs all work, cleaning up the discs if need be, finding like hidden gems or old school gems. I got an actual packaged Xbox controller, like an original Xbox controller in the original packaging. And it's stuff like that just makes me so happy. So that's probably what I would do once I retire.
So you wouldn't really need to sell stuff if you have unlimited money, but you would probably become like a geek collector, right?
I would definitely be much more of a collector. And that's actually why I'm doing it now, is to find stuff and like be able to use the profits to buy stuff that I want to collect. But I'd also still sell stuff because the thrill of the sale is still fun.
Oh, okay. I like it. That'd be fun to do. I always think of it as like when you see the vendors at the conventions.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them just kind of buy and sell stuff, or some of them create their own art and stuff like that. It seems like it would be fun. I think at least at the beginning for me, it would be fun. But after a while, I'd get kind of bored of it, or it'd become work, and then it's not fun anymore, and I'd abandon it. But it seems like at least for a while, that'd be pretty fun to go to conventions and just sell stuff.
Heck yeah.
But I think for me, and this is super cliche, but like everyone says, oh, I'm going to travel when I retire. But if you had unlimited resources, I think that would be a lot of fun. And I would want to take people, like, your family, is doing different things, whatever. But if you have a cousin that just wants to go to Spain, hey, let's go spend a month in Spain. Come with me. We're going to hop on a private jet. I have unlimited access and funds. Or, I'm going to go live in Tokyo for a couple months, or, go to the Himalayas, or wherever you want to go. See everything there is to see before you die, pretty much. I mean, if I can go into space, if there's, an actual colony established on Mars by then or something, then I'm down. As long as it's safe enough that I can actually return, it's not a one-way trip.
Where's the first place that you would go and visit?
Well, I've been to Portugal. My family's Portuguese. I went to the island that my family came from back in 2017. I think I'd like to go back there and stay for a few months if I could.
Nice.
That'd be pretty cool.
I thought it was funny that you mentioned Spain, because there are two places that I want to visit more than any other place on this planet, and it is Spain and Italy. Those are two countries I would love to visit and probably stay like a month in each place.
Yeah, so much history and culture. It's like, you look at our country, it's been around for a little over 200 years,
Right.
and you think we are something. And it's like, no, these people have been around for hundreds of years before we were founded. Like, there's so much more, history in other countries. So that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
All right, let's dive into our warp speed recap. The Enterprise, en route to Starbase 10, must make a stop for the annual checkup of a research colony. When they arrive, they find that the colonists are rapidly dying of old age. The last two colonists die in sickbay as Bones struggles to find a cure. Meanwhile, the landing party begins to show signs of accelerated aging. This is all except for Chekhov. Uh, if they don't find a cure soon, most of the senior staff will die of old age in just days. As Kirk's aging mind begins to slip, Commodore Stalker questions his ability to command the ship. A that's a hard word, a competency hearing is held, and command of the Enterprise is turned over to Stalker. With no command experience, Stalker gets the crew in hot water fast. Traveling through the neutral zone, the Enterprise is surrounded by Romulan ships and taking fire. The team may have found a cure and tests it on Captain Kirk. As he thrashes in agony, the shields are beginning to be depleted. Stalker, unable to hail the Romulans, considers they must surrender. The crew reminds him Romulans don't take prisoners, so surrendering means certain death. Captain Kirk marches onto the bridge, young and fit once again. He implements a new take on the Corbomite maneuver and scares off the Romulans just long enough for the Enterprise to escape. The Enterprise continues on to Starbase 10 and their next adventure.
Nice. I love that they reused refashioned the Corbomite maneuver for this episode. And
right.
Even though I didn't like the actual episode, the Corbomite maneuver, it did make me smile to hear it again in this episode.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. It's just a little callback. I like when they, tie threads together like that every once in a while.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we start on an away mission. We don't even actually start on the ship. We see the planet surface, the crew beaming down, the away team. It's Kirk, Spock, Bones, Scotty, Chekhov, and Lieutenant Galloway, a young female lieutenant. So they're visiting this planet to see these colonists just for the annual checkup. I think was the first episode was the same scenario, the man trap. It was we got to check on these scientists. So we know and we see now again here that's an annual checkup. They do this every year. They have to stop at all these different planets to see if these guys are still healthy. And
so much for exploring strange new worlds and seeking out new life and civilizations.
Yeah, revisiting old worlds that have already been visited before. So they can't find anybody though. The place is a ghost town, which there's only they said 6 colonists anyway, so you're not going to see a whole bustling city. But when they start searching around, Chekhov finds a dead body. And I noticed, so he goes into a room, the lights come on based on sensors once he's like all the way into the room. But I liked the light pillars. Do you notice those that were hanging in the room?
Yeah, they
look kind of like an alien technology, the fact that they're just different than what we're used to, but we don't see too much effort into unique lighting in different sets very often. So I thought that was a pretty cool touch.
Yeah, we didn't see much of the interior design of that set in this episode, but yeah, just having that nice little feature that we don't normally see was a nice touch. It made it look different enough to believe that it's an alien planet, but familiar enough that humans live there.
Yeah, and it almost makes me wanting to extrapolate on the story. The dead body, Chekhov finds a dead body laying in there on a bio bed, presumably. But with those kind of lights hanging around it, it makes me think maybe this was a medical facility. Maybe that bed is for scanning or healing or something like that. So it gave it a little extra touch that I thought was cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, he finds this old man lying dead in the bed, and he freaks out. He runs out of the room. He's calling for everybody. He's super scared that he just stumbled across the dead body. I think more so he's scared because I'm sure he's seen death being on a starship. The fact that the lights came on, he walked into a dark room, the lights came on, and there's a dead guy right next to him, kind of spooked him.
Right.
But then we meet Robert. So the crew comes in and investigates. But then we meet Robert, Johnson, and Elaine, I guess Johnson, husband and wife, who are the last 2 survivors of the colonists. And they say they're 29 and 27 years old. And obviously we can see they are like in their 80s or 90s. They're very, aged and look like they're near death. They're really old. And so that doesn't make sense. That's all of a sudden, that's where we realize there's something wrong on this planet. These people are aging way too fast.
This episode made me feel so freaking old. Like when they said they're 29 and 27. I mean, obviously that's part of the episode's story, but I'm like, you know what? I've had days like that. I'm 34. I've had days like that where I felt like I was aging beyond my years.
What should make you feel old is the truth behind this. That not the scenario of, these are people that are aging too fast. The truth that when they needed a number to say of what is a fit young scientist who's gone through their education, they're at the peak of their health and everything, that's younger than us now. 27 to 29 is what they say is the fit scientist that should be out doing research, and we're already in our early 30s. It's like, oh man, I'm I'm on the downhill already.
Yep.
One thing I noted from this scene though, when we meet these two, I think we got to chalk it up to these elderly actors. They did a good job, and they're very old, so it's probably harder for them to completely change characters. They're trying to play themselves. I think it would have helped if they were nervous or scared a little bit, because you're looking at your husband or your wife and you're seeing that they just aged in 2-3 days, by 60 years, and they should be kind of worried that, hey, we're gonna die soon. We saw all our other homies over here die, so they say, oh, they're here to pay their respects to whatever the other guy that already died. And they just seem like welcoming and kind of friendly, not necessarily panicking that, hey, we don't know how to stop this. We've been doing as much research as we can, and we only got like another day maybe until we pass.
Yeah, I thought that was a little weird too. I kind of forgot about it later on, because when Kirk was saying they were talking about the symptoms later on, and Kirk says that the brain goes faster than the body, and it's like total senility is what he says. So you just end up being senile before you die.
That makes sense too. Maybe they don't realize the situation, don't understand the situation, because when they try to talk later too, they seem just confused. But they remember their age, which was pretty good for elderly people.
Right? Yeah, I can hardly remember my own age half the time.
Yeah. Okay, so then we got our intro. We go into a captain's log. We find out a little more details that there was 6 colonists on the planet, 4 are dead already. They got Robert and Elaine are going up to the ship. We go into a briefing room scene. We meet Dr. Wallace. I don't think she wasn't part of the landing party. I don't think they introduced her until the briefing room scene, but she's an expert in endocrinology, which is, I imagine, aging, I think.
I don't know. I'm not smart.
Chronology is study of time, right? But endocrinology, I imagine, is aging to some extent. She's a specialist. She's a smart lady. And she's supposed to work with Dr. McCoy on this issue and try to figure out, how to reverse the effects on these people, or at least stop their accelerated aging. We also meet Commodore Stalker, which is, so he's going to Starbase 10. He's going to be in charge over there, I guess, the Commodore over there. And they included him in all this because Gamma Hydra 4, the planet that this all happened on, falls within his administrative area. One thing that I found a little interesting, I don't know, this is a technicality of how Starfleet may or may not work, but I don't think he would assume authority or command or his rank until he takes his position, right, of his new job. He's en route to Starbase 10 to accept his new job and take his spot. But he uses the influence and authority and power of that new role before he's, received it. So I think he's just like, oh yeah, I'm on my way to clock into my new job, but don't worry, I'm already a higher ranking guy just on your ship. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
I also, excuse me, I also noticed that whenever they have a Commodore on the ship, that guy ends up being like bad
taking
at
over the ship.
Yeah, and he ends up being very bad at it. Like, what was the last one?
Commodore. They're definitely not captains.
There was another Commodore, and the last name was it reminded me of Stalker, but it wasn't
Yeah,
Stalker. It
it's like
was
Stone or something like that. Stokes. I don't
I
remember.
don't remember. I remember last night when I was watching the episode, but I did I don't
Somebody right
remember.
now is like yelling at their, stereo or their phone, like, "What do you guys? You don't remember the things you already talked about? Come on." Sorry. I want to say it was Stone, but either way. But yeah, we see Commodores. They go on the ship. They are high ranking, so they can take over the ship in certain situations and stuff like that. And yet they typically don't have, or this one specifically doesn't have any command experience, but they typically don't have much experience in commanding a ship and what it takes. So they may have been a pencil pusher that worked their way up in the bureaucracy, but they don't, have experience in the field. So they're bad at commanding a starship. Um, so we have the roundtable discussion about the sickness and stuff like that. McCoy's exams are useless. He has no clue. He reminds us again that he's just bad at what he does. He has no prospects, no direction of how he's gonna figure this out. He just says, "Well, they're getting old quick, and I have no idea what to do about it." It's like, come on, dude, you're supposed to be an expert, but
I don't
he
know if
reminds us.
he's. It's funny how much we talk about how bad he is at his job, but at other times it seems like he's like the world's greatest doctor. Like,
Yeah,
like
they try to praise him, but they don't give him a hard time like I do when when he can't figure anything out or even have a clue. But when he does something good, they're like, "Oh my god, you're such a genius!" It's like, shouldn't that be his daily like job though?
well, I
It's
mean,
supposed to be.
last week he delivered a baby in a cave in like minutes, and
Yeah,
on a primitive in a primitive society. So I mean, it goes back and forth. I just
but if he wasn't there, would the baby still have come out?
I don't know.
He's
Probably.
playing catcher. He's just playing catcher. She's the baby would have fell in the dirt, but she would have picked it back up. So I don't know. I don't think he did anything special except for, well, he calmed her down. Maybe she would have like abandoned the baby too, but
But that's the other thing is that like a good doctor requires a good bedside manner, and he doesn't necessarily have that.
yeah.
He's one of my favorite characters. He's my favorite character to listen to, but he does not
Yeah.
fit the role of head physician on the flagship of Starfleet.
And I wonder, for back in the day, we like from the newer Star Treks the technobabble and
Yeah.
how scientific they get and how they can just totally imagine a scientific solution to stuff. But maybe back in the 60s that wasn't so embraced. Maybe people didn't want to hear, "Oh, he got a shot of this special concoction," and they don't want to know all the science behind it. They just want to know, we got a special thing that'll do a special thing. Here you go. Keep it really simple. So maybe that was on purpose. Maybe he's supposed to be more, and like the perspective of the common person, not super genius like Spock kind of thing.
Makes sense. You can't have too many super geniuses on one show, especially when you only have 3 leading crew or
Yeah, and every
characters.
other episode you're fighting a god creature.
Right.
So yeah, McCoy couldn't find anything scientifically or medically to cure these people. Spock wasn't able to find any kind of scientific reason that this planet would have caused this effect or anything like that. Um, Kirk suggests that it may be some kind of attack because they're near Romulan space. They're near the neutral zone. So it could have been some kind of unexpected attack from Romulans or something they're testing on, these people to use as a future weapon. So he tells everybody pretty much go in all directions. We need to, uncover every stone and try to find a cure for this. Figure out what's causing this.
I like that they
Stoker.
I like
Oh,
that
go
they bring up the Romulans too, because it's kind of foreshadowing, just like they did with the Klingons in the last episode. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we had reports that Klingons were around, and then all of a sudden there was a Klingon on the planet, and this time it's like, okay, it's not the Klingons, it's the Romulans, so it varies it. I like it.
Yeah, and right away it raises the stakes a little bit. Now you're like, okay, we're not just, out here in the open. We're not just out in the water. We're out in the water, and there might be sharks around. Kind of thing.
Right,
So
exactly.
there's a little bit more like, oh, okay, you don't want to dip your toe in as easily. So we also see Stoker, Commodore, going to Starbase 10 is in a hurry. He's eager to get to Starbase 10 and assume his new post, is what he says. And then so they all convene and start to go work on their stuff. But Dr. Wallace stays behind and speaks with Kirk, and they reminisce a little bit. So just like every pretty lady that comes on the show, she had some kind of relationship with him in the past, and it didn't work out. She got married, and then her husband passed away, and now she's back and flirting with Captain Kirk. So
Why
another
is my
another love interest.
question. Like, why?
I don't know. I mean, he must be very persuasive. Every woman that he seems to be with at some point when he's coming back, like maybe it's the title of captain too. Maybe that's like a big deal.
I just mean from
I'd
like a
imagine
TV perspective, why does he have to have a love interest every couple of weeks?
he's the guy that you want to imagine you would be, right? You want to put yourself in his shoes,
I'm
especially guys in the '60s more so.
I can't wait till we get to the next generation. Picard is a much better human being than Kirk is, in my opinion.
But then he has Riker takes his place, right? As the romance guy.
Yeah, but he's not the captain, so he
he has a little more room to do some
right.
lateral work in that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think that's a bit more tasteful to not have the leader of all your people also being this kind of ladies' man all the time. But yeah, so they kind of chit chat and rekindle and stuff like that. But then we go to the bridge. Spock finds that the planet has has very normal readings. He scans it even more detail. No potential cause for their aging. Stoker that's bad words. Stalker offers the resources of Starbase 10 because he's really eager to get there. So hey, you know what? This ship doesn't have that much scanning technology and blah blah blah. Let's hurry up and get to Starbase 10, and I will assist you guys with all the resources that I'll have under my command, and we can really figure this out, more effectively. And Kirk says, thanks, but no, we're gonna stay here. Our ship is adequate for doing this kind of stuff. He doesn't want to leave orbit until they figure out what it is that happened to these people. At this sorry, go ahead.
At this point, I thought that I was suspicious of Stalker. I thought that he was either an undercover Romulan or something that wanted to get to the starbase to take it over, or there was something. I didn't think he was just wanting to go there to start his new 9 to 5. I thought he was up to something.
Yeah, he was a little too eager, and it's like 6 people just died, bud. We need to figure this out.
Right.
I don't know. I understand his job is not being done while he's gone or something like that, and maybe he's getting behind on work and stuff, but and he's taking a position of authority, and it's a big step up for him probably, so he doesn't want to look bad not being there on his first day and all this stuff, but it's out of his control, and they have a serious issue going on. But yeah, he was a little too eager for sure. But at this point too, we see that Kirk repeats his order to Sulu, which is not like him. And Sulu points it out to Kirk, but Kirk tells him, okay, if I said it again, whatever, follow that order, pretty much. But then we see Spock, and he looks very concerned. That's not like him. I think Spock right away put 2 and 2 together, and oh no, his mind slipping. Whatever happened to those people must be happening to us. It must be contagious.
I don't think that repeating yourself one time is a notable concern. Maybe twice in a very short period of time, but it's mentioned later on, he's the captain of the ship. He's got a lot going on. He can't always remember every order he gave or every minute detail. So at this point, we're supposed to know, but I don't think the crew should know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be a captain, obviously, but but I have terrible memory. I'd be repeating myself all the time if I were him. How do you keep all that stuff straight? There's a million things going on at once.
Right, exactly.
So after this, we see more of the crew, more of the away team. Sorry, has symptoms of the same sickness. Lieutenant Galway tells Bones that she's losing her hearing. Kirk repeats himself again with Spock this time, and then little by little we see it from everybody in sickbay. Robert and Eileen, the last 2 people from that colony, had passed away. And then Bones is already starting to go gray. So we start to see symptoms from everybody. Bones is going gray. Kirk has advanced arthritis. He was having a little bit of pain in his shoulder, and must just be a pulled muscle.
I popped my shoulder 12 times per recording. My shoulder. I felt this episode, man. I pop I do that thing. I pop my neck.
Yeah,
I do this with my wrists. I rotate my wrist a lot because it pops all the time, and I do get an arthritis. Man, I felt every bit of this episode. It got me. I think that's why I didn't like it so much, because it made me feel so old.
Yeah. Don't worry. At the end, we'll have a serum to make you young again.
Nice. I also looked up the Commodore. The name that I was thinking of is Commodore Decker.
Decker. Okay.
So we have Stalker and we have Decker.
Nice. I like it. Sounds very cookie cutter white guy.
Yep.
So then we see Scotty steps into the sick bay too, and he's just like full gray hair, and his face is like clearly aged. Like he doesn't age as gracefully as McCoy.
How would you
um,
feel if, for the old versions of them, if they remaster these and they use old William Shatner face, old James Doohan face, and how would you feel about that?
I don't know. I don't think I would like that as much
Okay.
because it'd be more insulting to their current age. Like, in this show,
Well,
they're trying to make them look old and ugly and falling apart, and you're on the brink of death. And if you take how they look now, it's like, well, yeah, he's older, but maybe he aged gracefully. In the show, we want to show that he aged like, terribly.
I think it would be okay to do it with Shatner because at least he's still alive. Yeah,
Mhm.
with the rest of them, it would be very disrespectful, especially because they're not with
Oh
us
yeah.
anymore.
Oh yeah. Chekhov is still here, right?
Yeah, okay. Well, he didn't age
But
in
he's the only
this.
one that didn't age.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah, most of the other crew has passed. That's really sad.
Yeah. Sorry to bring
Uh,
that down. Wow.
so yeah, all members of the away team are aging rapidly, aside from Chekhov, and I like how they're like doing tests on him, and he's not liking it. Bones has no leads, and I think it was Spock that estimated they have about a week to live, and even less so before they become senile.
But so they
Uh,
also said that they're aging approximately 30 years a day.
yeah.
So
So
by a
do they live to
week, that's
150?
210 days. Or
Yeah.
210 years, I'm sorry. Like, maybe it's the living equivalent of that while still having enough body functionality to be able to live. And I don't know. I didn't understand the timing and the aging, and they could have made that either make less sense or more sense, and I would
Yeah.
have been happy with it. But
Yeah, they
the
could have said
amount of
5 years per day or something.
the amount of explaining they did and it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, though future technology, we don't know for sure, but people might be expected to live to 200 in their time.
I'm pretty sure by the time like Picard's around, it's still only like 150.
Okay.
But I could be
Yeah.
wrong. I do
No,
know
I believe it.
Vulcans have a longer lifespan though, and they point that out at least.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another loophole that we can't we all have to try to make some headcanon to fill. So yeah, they have probably about a week at the most, a week to live, a few days before they're senile. Lieutenant Galway, who's aging terribly, she doesn't want to sleep because she's afraid of what she'll wake up to. If she sleeps for 8 hours, she's gonna wake up and be, you know, 5 years older or something like that. And it's kind of funny but really sad when she walks out of sickbay. She sees that mirror and she looks at it and she's just like glaring at how ugly she is from aging so bad. And she even yells like, "This is a stupid place to hang a mirror."
I thought
I
that
kind
was a
of
great touch.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's also like, oh man, poor lady's really
Mm-hmm.
hates aging and looking old. Then we get a little more of the romance with Dr. Wallace and Kirk. She waits for him outside of sickbay so they can kind of walk and talk together. And she explains that she still loves him, um, but she still loves him, but he is far too. He explains that he's too old for her, and to me, that was kind of silly that he's trying to say, "Oh, I'm an old man. How old was your last husband?" Him being an old man has just happened the last few hours. Like
Right.
yesterday, he was of fitter age. Maybe they're still 10 years apart, probably because back in the '60s that was totally cool. But but I don't. I think this is a very temporary affliction. They should understand that yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna if I don't get better, I'm gonna die. But if I do get better, I should be your age again.
Right. But yeah, bringing up the fact like you just said that her ex-husband was 27, I think 27 years older than she was.
Yeah,
That's like,
yeah,
why have that? I don't see the purpose of having Dr. Wallace in this episode at all. The love interest thing is played out. Having somebody as a specialist who isn't helping in any capacity
yeah.
is beyond like dumb. And just to have the whole, oh, you're getting old, so I like you again thing. It's just it's so dumb and it's pointless to me.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if it was a romance that gets carried on over a few episodes or a
Right.
season, but I'm sure the next episode we're not going to see her. We probably never see her again in the show. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of they do that a lot too. This love interest with Captain, it's kind of been done before, and I don't care for it. I get the audience back then probably ate it up because I don't know, they wanted to imagine they were an older man with a younger woman, but I don't know, doesn't play as well nowadays.
Yeah.
But he does tell her to. He asks her because now he's older and she's quite a bit younger. Uh, he asks, "What are you offering me, love or going away present?" So that was a little interesting too. It was like, if I stay this age, as if he's able to stop aging and he's going to be, 60 and she's going to be 30. Do you think you can love me like long term, or you just want to hook up so that when I die, at least I had, a good farewell or something like that.
It did make me
Uh,
respect the character of Kirk a little bit more. It's like, well, if you want me because I'm old now and you feel
mhm.
bad for me, or you're just attracted to old dudes, then I don't want a part of this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna walk away. That was respectful, at least. I like
yeah.
that.
And he does keep like a tasteful distance at that point too. And it's like, okay, we're gonna figure out what's wrong with me, and then if I'm better, then maybe we can reconnect. If not, I'll be dead, so you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Yeah. So we go back to the bridge. Chekhov is tired of being tested on. He's kind of nagging to Sulu, which was a funny little bit they're doing. Then Stoker urges Stalker. I keep saying Stoker. I'm sorry, Stalker. Which either way, they're almost the same. He urges Kirk to get them to Starbase 10 as soon as possible. Spock found that the cause of the radiation was from the comet. I think they explained it that the comet passed by the planet, and then the planet orbited into the trail of the comet, like it's the trail it left behind. And there's a really low frequency radiation that they couldn't detect on regular scans, but eventually they found it, and that was what caused the accelerated aging. Kirk demonstrates that his mind is still slipping even more so because he keeps forgetting what he already said. I think twice on the bridge at that point he gives a command twice.
Yeah, at this point,
So
I think Spock is also starting to show signs of a little bit of mental deterioration as well.
yeah. So we go back to sickbay. We see that Bones is working to find a cure for this condition. Then Stalker speaks to Spock about taking command. He's explaining, like, I really appreciate the captain. He's a really good man, and I'm very fond of him. But you can see as well as I can, his mind is starting to go, and you need to take command. Like he's not fit for command right now. And so Spock doesn't want to do it, but they go back and forth, and the Commodore explains to him, like, you don't have a choice. If I say, if we follow proper protocol, if I tell you, if I point out that he's not fit for command, you have to take it into consideration, and you're going to have to call a competency hearing and all this stuff. So Spock reluctantly complies and has to go through the measures. So they have a competency hearing.
Which is,
Uh,
for aging people, it's just going to be like, well, that was 8 years of my life right there. Like,
Yeah, right. As long as this takes, if this is going to be like a 2-hour meeting or whatever, then yeah, they just lost several years of the life they have left, which is
and
only going to be
everybody that's
another
trying to
day.
find a resolution to this or trying to find a cure is a part of this competency hearing. So, talk about incompetency. It's
Yeah,
holy shit.
and as they're gearing up for this hearing, Galloway, Lieutenant Galloway, comes into sickbay and dies in Kirk's arms. And so it's kind of like, oh my god, the first of our landing party, first person, has died from this sickness. So it puts a timer on them. Like, it really, time is running out, and they have to hurry up and find a solution.
Which makes it even
Meanwhile, yeah, they're putting on the brakes by having this hearing, which slows
exactly.
everything down.
It's so
Uh,
like, and they don't even like point it out, like saying
yeah,
that I'm aging this rapidly. So what's the point? It's just going to take up this much time. But I guess they
yeah,
have to do it because it's regulation, and yeah, it's just, oh
yeah.
man,
Even Kirk does say at one point, though, it's like, why are we doing all this stuff when this is dumb to be doing this when there's so much work to be done? And I think that's what he means is, we don't have much time. We need to try to study this and find a solution. But honestly, if I were them too, I would kind of stop the ship somewhere. Like, I wouldn't be. Well, he was trying to stay in orbit. Yeah, I would. Yeah, just stay in orbit and try to resolve this so you don't have any new challenges that come your way when you're trying to focus on something.
It's funny that you said that you'd stay in orbit, because I'm like, I'd probably just fly to the nearest star base. I'm like, oh shit, that's what Stalker's been trying to do this whole time.
Yeah. Well, but so like if they didn't scan the planet again a
Right.
third time and detect that low grade radiation, they would have no idea still what was causing this. So you got to stay by
But it's
the
also
scene
kind
of
of
the
dumb
crime.
that they need to scan it so many times to get the information they're looking for. It's
Yeah.
like, just do all your scans at once and then dip, like get out of there
Yeah.
before, because you don't know what if there's gonna be any like long lasting effects or effects that pop up later on in like the
Mm,
ship or the ship's systems because of whatever it was that affected them, or any of the crew that's on the ship that didn't beam down. It's just
yeah.
go somewhere safe after you get the scans.
Yeah. That's like you're saying, they could if they stay in orbit, maybe that radiation will start to affect the whole rest of the crew. And it's like, we should have got out of here before that happened.
Right.
Especially if they'd never find a cure.
Oh yeah, especially then. Yeah.
So then we start a competency hearing. We have Sulu, Yeoman Atkins, and Lieutenant Ahura are all questioned in the hearing, and they're, Spock asks them very simple questions. Did Kirk say this, and then did he say it again 5 minutes later, pretty much? And all of them agree, like, yeah, he did say that. Yeah, he did do that. So it's damning. All of these people are like, yeah, sorry, but I love my captain, but he
Right.
is slipping. The computer determines that Kirk's age must be about 60 to 70 years old, based on the last physical that Bones gave him. And McCoy explains his condition and validates the computer. Like, yeah, you can't argue with the computer; it's a machine.
I did
Which
like how he
I
had that
disagree.
line. Well,
Yeah,
he's always been the kind of, I think we've seen it in other episodes. McCoy's always been like kind of anti-computer, anti-automation. He's the
yeah,
I'm a doctor, not a computer engineer kind of guy.
yeah.
He doesn't trust computers fully.
And then Kirk tries to defend himself, but he makes it clear in his defense that his mind is slipping because he forgets the planet that they're orbiting. I can't remember what it was called, but he called it by
Is your memory
the
slipping?
wrong number.
It's like
Yeah,
Hydra Gamma 2 is what he keeps saying, but it's actually Hydra Gamma 4, I
yeah.
think.
I think you got it right. And so he was like trying to say, "Ask me anything. What planet are we orbiting? Hydra Gamma 2." And then they look at him like, "Oh, come on, bud.
Hail
You're
Hydra.
embarrassing yourself now." And it's like, "Oh yeah, no, it's a Hydra Gamma 4." Um, let's see. So yeah, he's trying to defend himself. His mind's slipping. The board relieves Kirk of command after he goes to his quarters to rest while they debate and stuff. So they Kirk wanted, if he was relieved of command, he wanted Spock to take over because he trusts him, or maybe Scotty because those are his second and third in command, and he trusts them with the ship. Both of them are under the same affliction as him, so they're aging rapidly, losing their minds. And I guess based on their situation, the next in command would be Commodore Stalker. He's next highest ranking, so he must take command, and he's one of he's the next in command that isn't affected by this sickness, I guess.
I get why Spock didn't want to take command or didn't think he should take command, but I still think that
Mm-hmm.
Spock should have taken command. While he
Yeah.
was still affected by whatever's affecting everybody else that was on that planet, it's so much slower for him because of the longer lifespan of a Vulcan. And he
Mm-hmm.
was clearly still within his mental capacity to do everything else that he was doing. I think that he could have, just to avoid just to avoid Commodore Stalker taking over the ship.
Yeah. I think one thing he could have done, which I mean, obviously in hindsight, but uh, Spock could have told Commodore, like, or in the meeting together, say, we'll turn over command to Commodore Stalker, but I urge that we have myself and Captain Kirk on the bridge as advisors. So
Yeah,
Commodore
that's a
Stalker
good option
obviously
too.
having
Yeah.
zero experience, and they would have been able, even though they're old and feeble, maybe they're going to repeat what they're saying a couple times, but they'll have the experience to help. But when Spock tells Kirk that Stalker's taking command, he was furious. He was
Mm-hmm.
not having that. He felt betrayed by Spock. It's like, how would you turn over my ship to this guy? He has zero experience. He's going to kill us all. He was, yeah, not happy about it. And then Kirk does rant to, I put Jan, I think it's Dr. Wallace. Uh, but he must accept that he's getting old. He kind of faces that, I think. Then we go back to sickbay. Chekhov was, uh, back in sickbay, they start kind of trying to relive the scenario of how they got contaminated with this and stuff like that. And they realized Chekhov was separated from them for a short while. When he went into that room, he saw the dead body. He freaked out and came running out. And that's where finally Bones has this kind of light bulb moment where he realizes adrenaline from him racing out of the room, that could have been what stopped the sickness from affecting him, this radiation. And then they start talking about how this other drug is used for radiation poisoning, but before that was developed, adrenaline used to be used, and it has a little bit different effect, but they do kind of the same job. But in this situation, this special kind of radiation, they would have to use a concoction based on adrenaline versus hydrochlorine or something like that. I can't remember the
Something
name of the other one, but
something like that. I know you mentioned it earlier about Chekhov's reaction when he started screaming and running away. He had to have seen a dead body before, like you said.
yeah.
Why do you think he got so scared? It couldn't be just because the lights were off and then on and there's a body there. I mean, he's a Starfleet officer.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still on that.
honestly, it's just because they needed adrenaline.
Yeah.
They needed him to be pumped up, but
I'm glad that they did it with Chekhov and not with because typically in the original series they would have gone with a female officer to be scared
yeah,
because that's what they always do. So I'm for that instance I'm glad that they used Chekhov, but
that's
it's
a good
so
point. Yeah,
outside of what we know of the character already that it still feels off.
yeah, and like you're saying, they would have typically tried to make it like a damsel in distress kind
Yeah,
of
exactly.
situation.
Yeah.
If you wanted to tie in Dr. Wallace, that would have been a
That's what
better
I
role
was
for
just
her.
gonna say. That I'm surprised they didn't do it. I don't think it would be better necessarily, but it would make
Yeah,
more sense and it would be in line with everything else that the original series does.
yeah, because then her romance with the captain and stuff would make a little bit more sense because she was down there and now she's the only one that's not sick and the rest of them are dying and she's the expert. So
Right.
there would be a more, maybe not so much of a romance, but more she should feel guilty. She's gonna have like a survivor's guilt that not only was she with them and she's not sick, but she's an expert in this kind of science and she can't figure it out. So I think that would have been pretty cool.
I think so too.
Uh, and to increase the fear, if it was still Chekhov, they could have had something where like the body falls on him, or like the guy died
Yeah.
reaching for something like that, and he died with his arm up, and then Chekhov turns on the lights, and the arm like falls on his hand or collapses on it, or whatever. Something where it's like this
I
zombie trying
got
to
you.
grab him kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might have been a little harder to stage, but they could have done it. Okay, so we realize, yeah, we need adrenaline. I don't know if it was right here or a little bit later, but Spock and Dr. Wallace get to work on synthesizing or creating a cure based on adrenaline. We go to the bridge, and we're en route for Starbase 10. As soon as Stalker took over, he told Sulu, "Get to the helm, go to Starbase 10 directly as fast as possible. Don't make any deviations. No, pretty much go straight through the neutral zone because that's the only way to get there."
Which was very,
Or
very, very, very dumb
yeah,
for anybody in Starfleet, regardless of rank.
yeah, especially more so for him because he has no command experience. He doesn't know how to engage with Romulans. But sure enough, as soon as they take off and they're halfway into the neutral zone, they start to see Romulan ships, approaching, and like almost immediately, Stalker freezes. He has no idea what to do. Kirk tries to get to the bridge, but the doctor stops him and says, "No, you're not fit to do this to command." Stalker's trying to hail the Romulans. He's like, "Well, if only I could talk to them. I could explain what's going on. They'll understand. They'll be reasonable people." He's just delirious. He doesn't know what Romulans even are, so he has no idea how interacting with them is going to be. I think. He says, "If only we could talk to them." So that cure they're trying to make, they get at least the first untested version out, and they give it to Kirk. They were gonna give it to Bones, I think, but he says, "No, no, no, give it to me. I'll take it." And so he starts convulsing in pain. We don't see the upper half of his body though. We see his waist down convulsing. I thought that was kind of, I don't know, a poor shot. What do
Yeah,
you think?
it was like they if they would have used that shot to like try to show him getting younger throughout, like while the thing's taking effect, then that would have made sense. But they didn't
Yeah.
do that at all.
Yeah.
It went from like the scene of like the waist down to the bridge to the waist down to the bridge to the waist down again, I think, for a third time, and then with the bridge with Kirk running to the bridge. Like it didn't even show him on the bed as his younger self.
Oh, because they didn't want to show the de-aging.
Right.
They wanted to show him convulsing and us think it might have just killed him. And then we see him stepping out onto the bridge, and that's the grand reveal of your captain's healthy again. So if they showed him healed on the medical bed, we wouldn't have that climactic reveal.
But I think if they wanted to really make it to be like, oh, the captain's in peril, is show his face while he's writhing in pain. But then they'd have to show the transformation too, probably, and they didn't have the budget for that. I don't know. It was very odd. It was a really odd choice.
Or see his face, actually make his face get older. Show his face when he's old and he's aging, and then his hair starts to fall out and his skin starts to come off like glue, like dried glue. And then we don't see him again until he's on the bridge, and we realize he shed like a snake. All that old skin died and came off.
I was wondering where you were going with that. I'm like, why would his hair fall? What? Where?
Yeah.
What?
Well, underneath his gray hair, all of a sudden he has his luscious locks back again.
It just makes sense.
It's just like a chameleon. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be kind of funny. So yeah, Stark is trying to hail Romulans. Kirk's writhing in pain, convulsing. The Romulans start to attack the ship. They're surrounded. The Enterprise is surrounded by Romulans. Stalker has no clue what to do. And then, sure enough, we see Captain Kirk steps out on the bridge, young and healthy again.
Right at the nick of time.
Yeah, when we were like in our oh shit moment, they just mentioned that the shields are getting low. They know they're gonna break through the shield soon. So he quick-witted, sends a message to Starfleet, right? So he mentioned earlier with Ahura that Code 2 had been broken. That was one of the things that he forgot in his old mind. Code 2 is like one of their code languages to be able to send messages
like an
without
encryption method for.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For encryption messages.
But they know the Romulans have figured out how to translate, decrypt Code 2, so they were communicating on Code 3. Well, he tells Ahura, I need you to send a message, send it on Code 2. And she's like, are you sure that was broken already? He's like, I know, send it on Code 2. So pretty much he's sending a message that he knows the Romulans will be able to intercept. He sends it to Starbase 10 or to Starfleet, explaining that they are surrounded by Romulans. The ship is under attack. They're going to be destroyed. They will be engaging the Corbomite device that was recently installed. This will destroy all matter within 200,000 kilometers and establish a dead zone. So he's warning them to have all Federation ships stay clear of this area for the next 4 solar years, and that he's arming the device. It's going to take place in 1 minute. So pretty much we're arming this massive weapon. Any ship within 200,000 kilometers is going to be destroyed. So the Romulans intercept that and they start to retreat. They're like, oh, heck no, they because Kirk was smart and sends it in one of their encrypted codes, but one that they knew was broken. The Romulans can assume that Starfleet doesn't know that they're listening in on them. So yeah, they retreat. And just with enough time, Enterprise turns around and jumps to warp 8, so they're able to get away before the Romulans see them running and start to follow them, and they can't catch up.
So of all the harebrained schemes that Captain Kirk and the rest of the Enterprise crew have come up with, I think this is the best one. It was the most entertaining from an audience perspective, but it was also the most logical one in the situation. So
it makes sense. Great. Yeah, I thought it was really well done. And I like how they called it the Corbomite device, because we see in the episode the Corbomite maneuver where they pretend that the ship has this special device that will refract their attack by 100-fold or something like that, and it'll destroy the enemy ship. So it was kind of cool to tie that back in. And then everyone is kind of recovering afterwards because that treatment worked. So Bones steps out on the bridge, young and healthy again. He says that Scotty is doing well, so he's already received the treatment. Spock is the only one that has it. He's still on the bridge, still old in age. But he says that Spock is next, and that the doctor made an extra strong dose just for him because of his Vulcan physique. but he also removed all of the breakable items out of the sick bay. So that was just kind of funny. And we
Yeah.
saw how much Kirk was convulsing. Imagine that kind of pain and convulsing and flopping around on the in sick bay with a Vulcan and his increased strength.
Right.
Um, and then we see Kirk walks up to Dr. Wallace at towards the end as he's talking to the crew. He's telling Sulu, "Take over, steady as she goes." But he's walking up to Wallace to like, I don't know, hug her, kiss her, talk to her. Like, okay, now I'm healthy and young again. You're healthy and young. We can get back to where we were on maybe resuming our love interest or whatever. So it was kind of again like I like how you said that whole part of the episode could have been cut out,
Yeah,
uh,
easily.
or rewritten a lot. But we don't need to have Kirk falling in love in every episode. Um, oh, and then when he tells Sulu, "Take over, steady as she goes," he repeats that back, "Steady as she goes," and Kirk kind of looks like, "I thought I just said that." And it's kind of like a little wink, a little their attempt of humor at the end, as if he's, losing his mind again already.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that was a pretty solid episode. I like that it doesn't follow the same scenario that we've seen over and over again. We've seen kind of similar ones where they get some kind of sickness, but not necessarily like this. So it was kind of a good change of pace to me.
I think my gripes with the episode are just that Commodore Stalker does not belong in Starfleet. If he doesn't
Mm.
know to avoid Romulans at all costs, like, why are
Yeah,
you?
he's gonna
How
be.
did you get promoted to the point where you're taking command of a star base?
Yeah.
And the excuse me, oh my goodness, sorry. And the whole purpose of Dr. Wallace was nothing in this episode.
Yeah.
I do like that it was a different story. It was kind of almost humorous, but almost like, oh, old people suck at the same time. Like, I thought it was very like ageist, like it was bashing old people.
That's true. I didn't even think of that.
So, I mean, we're going to move on to the moral of the story next. That's actually what I got from this episode, was that Gene Roddenberry hates old people. That is legitimately what I got from this. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to grow old. And that's probably what it is hang on to your youth, but it's going to go and you need to learn to accept it. That's probably what he was going for. But honestly, I just think that he doesn't like talking to old people and made a whole episode of Star Trek about it.
Man. Hey, that's that. I didn't think about the discrimination against old people and how this could totally be, kind of seen as ageist. Like, old people can still do things. They don't all lose their minds. They don't all go blind or lose their
Right.
hearing or anything like that. And everybody ages differently, which they did point out. But um, just because you're old doesn't mean you can't captain a starship. I mean,
Right.
depending on eventually people will die of old age. They will start to lose abilities later in life. But everybody has their own level of ability. So to that point, I do think they were fair in they did not try to remove the captain from his post or stop anybody from doing anything just based on their age or just based on their appearance.
Right. It was his
It was
mental
solely based
capacity.
on so it was him losing his ability, his cognitive abilities. So
But it was all prefaced on the fact that his age, or his seeming aging, the aging process was doing that to him, which made it so he couldn't do that. I don't know. It seemed like it was elderly bashing to me.
yeah.
That's at least what I
So
got.
I got two morals out of this. First one is getting old's a bitch, which we all know, especially we're in our 30s, and I feel like I'm older than my dad sometimes, but
I hear that.
but more so, kind of an underlying one that might not have been so transparent is someone else's job may look fun or easy, but if you don't know or learn how to do it, you will likely fail. So Stalker thought, "Oh yeah, I could be a captain. I just need to tell people what to do. Hey, we're going here. We need to just get there." And he took the captain's chair, and immediately like froze. Didn't know what to do. They got in a hot situation he just wasn't trained for, wasn't prepared for, had no experience. And so the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You got to know how to do someone's job if you want to take it, even if it may seem like a cush job or really easy or really fun or something like that. if you don't know how to do it, you're gonna fail. You're gonna turn that good job into a really crappy one. So
Maybe this was Roddenberry's way of saying, "Hey, you guys want to bash Star Trek? Well, it's not as easy as you think it is, but you're more than welcome to try it if you want." And then,
yeah,
you know,
Star Wars was born.
60. Oh yeah, I was gonna say 60 years later, a podcast was created about it, but
Yeah. What grade did you have for this episode?
I'm gonna give it a C minus. It was
Oh man.
the I didn't care for almost anything about the episode besides the set design and the makeup. Other than that,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
So, yeah, I thought
The characters were
thought
useless, and the other characters that they introduced in this episode were useless. The writing was not bad, but not great, and
mhm.
just the amount of time they wasted in the episode just made it kind of not great for me.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good, but you pointing out Wallace's character should have been changed, definitely changed. Like I didn't see that at first, and the ageism concept, like I didn't even think about that. But yeah, it could be seen as bashing on old people. But I was gonna give it a B plus. I'll give it just a solid B probably. I did like the story. I thought it was pretty fun. They did pretty good makeup work for the
Yes,
time, especially.
absolutely.
And they didn't have another super being, another godlike creature that they're fighting, which is great because they've done that too many times already. So yeah, all around I thought it was pretty good. The stalker. Now that you were talking about his character too, is kind of like a useless character. I think it would have been better if they villainized him. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a friendly. He was like the all American, like we're gonna follow the chain of command the way things need to be, and being very respectful to Kirk and stuff like that. But I like a Loki. I like a unforeseen, like he's a bad guy later turned into hero, not a good guy kind of turned idiot that doesn't know what he's doing,
Right.
accidentally becoming a villain.
Yeah.
So that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. That would have at least added some intrigue to the story rather than, oh, I wonder if all the main characters are going to die this episode.
Right.
Something to actually latch
Don't
onto.
tune in next week, everyone's dead.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's just gonna be the memorial service. Oh god. All right, well, if you guys like that, please join us next week. We're gonna have season 2 episode 13, Obsession. Don't forget to check out our Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, Discord. Go to geekfreakspodcast.com. We got links to all our different networks on there, so check us out.
Yeah, and until next time, transporter room, 2 to beam up.